and again, this is off after I've already had a lot of dialogue with them about what they're looking for and how they want to change. So I feel like I have a good sense of this person and where we're starting and what they're curious about. Once I get that foundation, I almost always start with beginning to have a dialogue about principles and what it means to have principles. Again, and I define principles because people often use that word to mean a lot of things, like the 10 principles of good parenting or the 9 principles of effective leadership or whatever. But I want to help them see that no, actually, I'm going to talk about a principle in a scientific way. So these principles meet the criteria of a scientific principle. They're constant, so they're always true. They're explanatory, they explain phenomenon, and they're predictive. When a principle, a principle, you can predict what's going to happen. So, people, I ask people, do you know what I mean by principle? When I describe and explain it, is there a principle that comes to mind that you can think of? And most people think of gravity, like, I guess gravity. Yeah, gravity. That's a principle that doesn't matter whether you believe in it, doesn't matter whether you think it's true. Gravity doesn't care. No one invented gravity. It just is. And I'll tell them, well, there are actually principles that govern how human beings see the world psychologically. And when you understand these principles, it's a bit like understanding gravity. Even though most of us don't really remember having an insight about gravity, you all had to. You had to, and those of you who have small children or remember seeing small children learning how to walk, they fall down and they get an intimate experience of gravity. Eventually we have an insight about it. Now, you don't know that when you're a kid, but you have had an insight. And so, and that insight has served you your whole life. Well, the same thing is true when you understand principles of how you function psychologically. You grasp these principles. Well, you now have a foundational understanding of everything you experience. You bring it back, everything you experience comes back to the principles of mind, consciousness, and thought. And then I will give my little definition of mind, consciousness, and thought, which I change up as best I can depending on who's in front of me. As no one has nailed the definition of mind, consciousness, or thought. No one, not even Sid. You read Sid books, he'll say it one way, and then you'll hear a recording, he'll say it a different way. So there's no perfect way. You don't have to worry about it. But you want to try to get across the gist of it. So you have a client who's already beginning to say, wow, principles. Gee, I never considered that. And I want them to see what it does for us when we have principles. And it just explains things in such a simple way that once you grasp the principles, you can't move away from it. You can temporarily, we all do, me too. But eventually you come back to, wow, okay. All right, this must be mind, consciousness, and thought. It can't be anything else. Yeah, but it looks like It's the traffic. Yeah, but it looks like it's my boss. Yeah, but it looks like it's my spouse. Yeah, I know it looks that way, but it's not. Remember, there's principles. So that's how I start. It can sound a little abstract. I mean, yes, it sounds a little abstract to people. And so I do my best to make it ordinary and use a lot of, I draw pictures. I can't draw, but I draw pictures. They're ridiculous pictures. But I do whatever I can to help people see that there's something you can fall back on always. It's always operating.